when you saw the judge look squarely at Donald Trump and scold him like a schoolboy for violating the gag order, what was that like?
It's always surreal when you see judges kind of scold defendants. I think, and Trump looked very small in that moment. And it was very clear from Judge Merchan to say, if you continue to violate the gag order, we were going to consider putting you in jail. And it couldn't have been said in any more clear terms. And the looks on Todd Blanche and Emile Beauvais' faces, the two defense lawyers for Trump, they were not pretty. I think in terms of the trial, though, it was also significant because, remember, that was just the first part of the morning. Today, we got into testimony that moved the trial on into a new phase.
We'll talk about that in a second. I want to just stay with the morning and the gag order. Charles, yes, the judge looked at Trump and basically said, if you do that again, here's the thing. He knows Trump's going to violate it again. So is it that big of a threat that we're facing here?
It is. And the reason why it is because when you're talking about the clock ticking in Donald Trump, we've still got a considerable amount of trial to go. The estimation is about two more weeks. Donald Trump does not have a whole lot of leeway that he has to walk on. And it's important that Judge Merchan has laid this out this way, primarily because, Stephanie, once you cross that threshold, you don't go back. So once you go over and you say, now I'm putting you in jail, every other offense past that is jail or more jail. You don't go back to fines. And so Judge Merchan has thought very carefully within his calculus around how this is going to land, how particularly disruptive it could be to the actual proceedings. And he's thought to try to give him as many warnings as possible so that once that threshold has been crossed, there's no excuse.
He said, I warned you. Merchan, McKay, the judge laid it out, right? Like, he acknowledged what he called the magnitude of jailing a former, possibly future president. What was your reaction, right? When the judge basically lays it out there, I realized the kind of impact this could have on the election, on the campaign, maybe on himself one day.
Yeah, no, I think that was the thing that struck me. Look, I'm not a legal expert, but I'm a political reporter. I cover politics. I cover the country. And when you look at polls around this trial, they're more or less what you'd expect, right? Roughly half the country thinks that Trump did something illegal. The other half doesn't think he did. Roughly half the country says the trial's fair. The other half says it's not, give or take a few points on one side or the other. And it breaks down along partisan lines. But to me, the most important number from these polls, there's a poll last week from PBS Marist. It found that 55% of Americans are not following this trial. What could change that? More than anything else, a jail sanction, right? I mean, I think in some ways it's kind of remarkable that we are in a presidential election year and most of the country is not paying attention to a criminal trial for one of the major party presidential nominees. That said, I think that would all change in a lot of unpredictable ways. And the judge was acknowledging that, right? He understands that this would be a seismic event in American political history. And I don't think anybody who tells you they know how that will play out, what the consequences would be, is telling the truth. I don't think any of us know, but it would be a momentous thing. Now, I don't think the judge should make his decisions based on the politics of this, but I think he must be aware that, the world is watching, that this is going to be a historic moment if he ends up putting a major party presidential nominee in jail, even if just for a few hours. That would be a big moment.
I'm not sure if I believe that half the country doesn't believe Trump did anything wrong. I think a whole lot of them know he did something wrong, and they just don't care. Charles, what would jail time look like? Because it could be Rikers, or it could be sort of this holding cell in the courtroom, which I've never seen it, but in my mind, it's like the naughty room in church where the crying babies have to go if they can't behave.
Right. I think that in terms of escalations, that's what you would
know that room.
He would be put in the back.
There you go.
And he would be by himself for a specified amount of time. It may not necessarily be a full day, it may be a few hours. But I think that is the type of escalation. I don't necessarily know that at the first time that Judge Merchan takes this step, that he's putting him on a DLC bus and sending him over to Rikers Island. I don't think that's happening. I also think it's very important to note.
Would he wear a jumpsuit? And, like, if he went to Rikers, what would that look like?
It would depend on how long he was there. And
he'd have Secret Service with him.
He would have Secret Service.
I shouldn't
with
laugh.
him. Yes, he would have Secret Service with him. But I think it's important to note that prosecutors still haven't yet asked for that as a penalty, because they also understand that they themselves could be all asked to offer a recommendation, and that puts them in a difficult position of, do we want to ask for what we probably would for any other defendant? Do we want to ask for something lighter? How is that going to make us look? There's a calculation with that as well. So everybody is trying to answer the question that you just asked, which is, once we do get to the point that jail is involved, what does jail actually mean? I do think it starts in the back, in the pokey, in that sort of small room where he will sit for a few hours, and then it will escalate from there with increased amount of time until we get to the point, if we ever get to the point, that he's sent to Rikers.
If you were Mershon, if you were Alvin Bragg, if you were Alvin Bragg's team, would you be afraid that Trump's going to come for you if he wins? I mean, you remember Jim Comey got audited like 3 times during the Trump administration.
I think that calculation has been long since done. You have to already have made that decision and move and be all in. That's your job as a prosecutor. And if you decide to bring this case way back before you even go in front of the grand jury, you know what the potential implications are, because you're clearly aware of how popular this man is. You're clearly aware of how rabid and insane his followers are and the extents to which they will go to in order to protect and support this man.
Or what he'll do.
And what he will do to try to, stoke those fears and keep that fire fanned. So by the time that you've even bought the indictment, you know what you're up against, and you've made that decision to be all in.
Hugo, let's talk about the testimony today. 2 former Trump employees, and they weren't low-level employees, right? These were longtime strategic partners in the small organization. What stuck out?
Yeah, I mean, Jeffrey McConney, for sure.
Tell our audience who that is.
Yeah, so Jeffrey McConney was the ex-controller at the Trump organization. He was on the 26th floor, which was where Trump has his office. Michael Cohen once had his office. The kids are actually on the floor below. They're on the 25th floor. So to give you an idea of just how inside McConney is and the whole operation, I mean, it's really a small family business. Trump works on like a small family business. It's very important to understand that, because McConney was directly involved in facilitating the repayments, what the DA is saying, this illicit repayment scheme to Michael Cohen. And he basically ran through kind of 2 big things. One was explaining the handwriting of Alan Weisselberg on the bank statement from Michael Cohen's shell company that he used to pay Stormy Daniels' lawyer. And I think that was very interesting because, if you only had Michael Cohen describing the handwriting, you might say, oh, you don't know that that's Alan Weisselberg's handwriting. You don't know what it says. It's very scratchy.
But they're backing him up.
But they're backing it up. And when McConney says it, there's a degree of credibility that I don't think any other witness could potentially bring in this case. And I think that was very significant. And it kind of shows there's this part that kind of says, 2 times for tax. And this is fascinating because he is basically saying that these, what we'll call legal expenses, weren't being treated as legal expenses. Yeah. And the prosecutors actually elicited from McConney this very key piece of testimony, which was, have you, in your 35 years of service at the Trump Organization, ever seen anything like this where you've dealt with expenses like this? And he goes, no.
To me, hearing all of that, learning about all of that, only underscores the criminality of the Trump business, right? Donald Trump made his political career by saying he is not a politician. He is a real businessman with real business experience, and he could run the country like he did the Trump Organization. So we should talk about the Trump Organization, because at this point, this guy is going to have to pay hundreds of millions of dollars in civil fraud, right? A verdict from his civil fraud case. We know that key witnesses now, Michael Cohen was a Trump Organization VP before he spent 2 years in jail for tax evasion and other crimes. And, of course, Trump's former CFO, Alan Weisselberg, who was in the Trump Organization for decades and decades, is now in jail for the 2nd time, with all of the conduct tied to what he did working for Trump. So, McKay, is there anything left of the Trump business reputation at this point for those out there who say, well, I'm into him because he's a great business guy?
Yeah, I don't think so. I have to admit that I've always been skeptical of hardcore Trump supporters who say that they support him because they want a president CEO, right? I do believe there are a lot of people in America who feel that way. I've heard that for, decades. People
Yeah, they
saying, I
voted
want
for
a
Mitt
businessman as
Romney.
president.
Those are people who supported
Well-
Mitt Romney, an actual super successful businessman.
Right. I think what Donald Trump is actually doing with this trial, because I think you're right, that if there is anyone left who is thinking of Trump as this great businessman, if they're paying attention to this trial and all the investigations, they're going to see that the kind of facade of Trump, the genius businessman, is collapsing. But set that aside, I think what he's doing is setting himself up as a martyr. And this is what he's always done so well, is saying that the people who are coming after me are really coming after you, right? The prosecutors who are hounding me, it's really because they want to get to you. And you even saw him today in his comments after the trial. He said, or today's court proceedings, he said, I'm willing to sacrifice myself for the sake of the Constitution. He's acting like he is the man standing between these, extremely political, nefarious forces in the prosecution and the American people. And I think that is what the signal he's sending with his posturing around the trial. I don't think that anybody could sincerely still believe that he is kind of a genius businessman, and that's why they're supporting.